Welcome to Reality's Breakdown, everybody. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate you showing up. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the dangers of faith. The belligerent atheist, am going to be your host tonight. We have myself and Matt, the apoplectic atheist, as well. So tonight, the dangers of faith. Please don't forget to stick around for the atheist spotlight near the end of the show. So the dangers of faith and the effects of faith on society. So there are a lot of different reasons why faith is dangerous. There are a lot of different reasons why faith can be positive. But to me, the topics and the bullet points of how faith can be positive are greatly outnumbered by the ways that they can be negative. So the effects of faith on society, one of the first ones I want to hit on was legislating hatred. Of course, I'm going to be talking about from my experience in the United States, but I know that a lot of these topics are actually going to relate internationally. So legislated hatred, and I'm going to use the Defense of Marriage Act. So to prevent marriage equality, we have marriage equality now, which is amazing, and I'm glad that that happened. But for the very longest time, we didn't have that, of course. I mean, everyone knows. And it was legislation such as the Defense of Marriage Act that prevented that kind of thing from happening, to prevent people from having some of those basic civil rights. And the Bible was used to throw that stone, so to speak, just as preventing slaves from the days of the colony, preventing slaves from owning property, from being free, preventing women from voting. These are all examples, even preventing women internationally from holding a job or doing anything but being a homemaker. These are all things that faith has prevented, and it's offensive to me, and I know that it's offensive to all of you as well. So something else, not just the legislation of hatred, but going a little bit more intangible, faith prevents the free expression of different faiths. So in a theocracy, you're going to have one faith that kind of rules society. And when you have that theocracy you have the rules of that faith, it's going to prevent other faiths from expressing their tenets, from performing their religious rituals, from being out in public and doing those things, because whenever a faith is expressing itself publicly, it is perceived as a threat to the theocracy in power. Of course, if you're not practicing the faith that society says is the faith that everyone needs to practice, then you're going to be viewed as a threat, and in that measure, you're going to be attacked. So preventing the free expression of different faiths under a theocracy would be very, very easy to explain. Look at the Middle East even. So just looking at the Middle East and all the Middle Eastern theocracies, you are punished by death for being an atheist or for being a humanist or anything secular. You are punished by death for being any type of an infidel. Most of these punishments are by hanging. Some minor infractions, they just throw acid in your face. But if you're not Islamic, if you're not a Muslim, then in this Islamic theocracy, you are punished for that. And that's exactly what I'm talking about, the dangers of faith. So in this Middle Eastern theocracy, you cannot express yourself in the normal manner. You can't be free to be who you are if you are not what everyone else purports to be. Something else that I would like to bring up, just to kind of add fuel to the fire here, just to keep it burning brightly. So let's talk about medieval theocracies. We're going to talk about how, even though they didn't say that they were a theocracy, that they were a monarchy, and we're talking about like the Golden Age and medieval times, Bronze Age, things like that. We're going to talking about public stonings, where everyone takes their stone and for the sake of committing one of the sins of society that had been deemed by their particular holy book at the time. Drowning, in the case of especially witches, drowning witches, if they survive the drowning, obviously they're a witch and will burn her at the stake, which, I mean, you and I can think about that, and we can see that that's, largely hypocritical. That person that was accused is going to die anyways. So there, even though there is no basis for this accusation, they're still going to be murdered, and that is a public sanctioned murder for what? For an example? And then I'll just bring up another major point, which is the Roman Empire. So in the Roman Empire, when the Roman Empire was, polytheistic, you would have, when Christianity was introduced in the Roman Empire, we all know through basic history that the Christians were brought into the Colosseum and they were fed to the lions in front of everybody as another public display and an example of what happens when you don't take your crayons and color how I want you to color. And then when Christianity took over the Roman Empire, eventually the right people became Christian, and they legislated that Christianity, then you would have pagan murders. We're talking about crucifixions along the road to Rome, crucifixions on a hill, because we all know that Jesus wasn't the only one that was crucified. So if he was in fact even crucified, Jesus of Nazareth, pending he existed, but everyone that did not follow the rules crucified on the road to Rome, because all roads lead to Rome, as an example, entering the city of how we want you to color inside the lines with the colors that we give you in the manner that we want you to. Just another example of how faith is a danger, how faith can be a danger to society when it is given way too much power. I think I've kind of prattled on long enough. I'm sure that Matt has a couple of talking points, or I doubt he has any rebuttals, but I mean, I'm sure he has a couple things he'd like to say. Matt?
This might be considered a rebuttal. I'm actually a little bit surprised at the direction this is going. When I first heard this title, I interpreted it as the dangers of thinking you know things that you don't really know. I'm sorry, I mean, correct me, but it seems like you're using the definition of faith to mean religion, basically. And I was just not expecting that. I was, for some reason, in a totally different definition. So I actually looked up the definition. It's a complete trust or confidence in someone or something, and a strong belief in God or in the doctrines of a religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof, which is clearly, I mean, there's two ways to look at it, is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, I guess you could look at this as a rebuttal, but I was totally ready to talk about the believing in things that you think are true but you don't have good evidence for type of faith, which is in its own way very dangerous, just a totally different side of the spectrum. So, yeah, I don't know. Would you want to just continue on your outlook on it, or do we want to compare and contrast, or how
I think that I would like to talk about both of them, because I think both of them are very important. The dangers of faith via religion and the dangers of faith just via any type of dogma or any type of belief that you have that's unfounded. I think that, because we talked about that kind of last week, or I think it was last week, the spirit science episode that we did, we talked about that as well. So if you want to touch on that side, and then we can talk about both. I don't feel like we need to be limited.
Okay, yeah, it's just trying to do it in a cohesive manner. But so yeah, I mean, I agree. As far, I'm just going to use the term religion when I'm referring to your take on it. I agree as far as religion goes. It's I don't see how it's ever had a net good. And I mean, obviously, I'm biased on this, coming from a pretty much anti-theist, atheist. I mean, I think it has done some good, but I think if you weighed it on both sides, it's clearly not doing good. If you just came down to the you know what I mean, pluses and minuses of it. And I think that goes for every single religion. I can't think of one that doesn't do more harm than good. And I think if people think it does, I think if people think it's the other way around, they're mistaken. I'm sorry, but Yeah, and I think your example of how the Romans basically flip-flopped is a perfect example. It's two different religions, and they're both doing the same thing. They're murdering in the name of their gods. They're in the name of their religion, and that's, you know, it's an excuse to do evil. And if they never had that, who knows? You know, I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you think more people need the direction and the rules of religion to be good, or would we be better off without it?
I think that there are many people that do need a set of rules placed before them, and they need the feeling of being part of something that's larger than themselves, and also the idea that being has declared that there is a goodness in everybody, and that their ideas are part of a larger picture. And I think that that's really really sad, the people that need that, because all of us are important, and all of us, even just standing within the rules of society to be decent people. I think people that need that aren't bad people, but I do think that there is a deficiency that prevents them from being empathetic and being universally moral, just being moral within the confines of humanity. So, I mean, I think that you definitely hit the nail on the head, and I loved when you said that there is no net good of religion, and that's perfect, because when you look at when you talk about religion, you can't just talk about the good. I mean, there are plenty of people that would call themselves moderates and progressives that are only looking and cherry picking the good parts, which is fine. I'm not coming down on them for doing that, because I think that if anyone should be religious, they should just pick the good parts and use that as a basis to use their lives if they're going to be religious. But I feel sad for those individuals that cannot be good people without religion, and they need that guidance from other people to make them good. And there are so many people that use religion, just as you said, as a justification to do evil, because they work the loopholes in the system to continue to do bad things. And I feel really really sad for the people that just can't stand on their own and be good people. They obviously lack empathy. They can't. If you can't be a good person without a millenniums old book, an ancient book written by some desert dwelling sand people in another language that's been translated over 2 to 3 dozen times to be a good person, if you need that and you can't be a good person without that, you obviously have a deficiency and you need to seek some counseling. That's in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's either nature or nurture, you know what I'm saying? I think it's the community coming together and raising people in a good way to be a part of the community and helping people to reach their full potential can completely be done without religion. That is definitely one of the good things of religion, but my feeling is that is the carrot and everything else is a stick, or I don't know if I'm saying that right, but you know what I'm saying? It's like that is a good thing that they basically co-opted because they needed something good. Religion had something good for it, you know what I mean? Like what a lot of religions don't even have that, you know? I can't really name one, but I mean imagine like, you know, I don't know, Egypt or something where the king is a god and that's it, you know, and like everybody else is just his servant, you know. There's not much, I guess there's some type of community there, but it just seems more of a slavery type situation. But yeah, I don't know where the hell I'm going with this, so if you want to chime in, you can, or I'll go over to the definition I was thinking of. Faith is in believing in something that you think is true, but you might not know why it's true, or might not have a good reason for believing that. And I mean that is I'm probably even more dangerous. I mean that's basically what is feeding into a lot of religion. People who are just ignorant and don't know why they're believing, or don't look and examine themselves. They don't examine anything for what it's worth, or you know what I'm saying? It's like people just want to be spoon-fed. What is good? What is right? What is truth? You know, they don't really want to explore it. You know, and that's very dangerous. It's dangerous in multiple ways. Like you were mentioning spirit science. People like that can be led like sheep. Um, I don't know. I feel bad talking about that because like I don't know anybody like that, and so I don't know how prevalent that is. But it's that mentality. I think everybody has it a little bit. Like I've been fooled. I'm not going to claim I'm perfect at all, you know, and that's why I am probably more contrarian than skeptical. I'm just like my immediate reaction is to be like, no, I don't buy it. I don't buy it, you know. And it's because I've kind of built up. I've kind of explored myself and know what's happened in my past and learned lessons from that and kind of went full tilt in the other direction, you know what I'm saying? But so it could be good or bad, you know, but I think there's a very good level of skepticism and kind of self-learning and looking at yourself and looking at what is truth and exploring it. Does that, I don't know, whatever. What do you got?
No, that doesn't. That's not incorrect, and I agree with you. And it's not necessarily just people that are ignorant that piss me off. It's the willful ignorance. It's the people that obviously have some type of availability to the information and understand that there could be something else, but they continue to proliferate the ignorance, and
that's
then
what I was trying to
they
convey.
indoctrinate other people, and they bring that forward, and it's that willful ignorance. And even if they know something's different, and they continue to proliferate that ignorance, that's what pisses me off. I mean, like you said, you know, I've been religious in my past. And all of, I mean, you and I both have the wool pulled over our eyes, and we've sat in that arena, and we've participated in some of those rituals, like religious practices, and the community was great. However, and I know Foxhole Atheist is going to disagree with me. Him and I have a disagreement about the atheist community, but there is an atheist community. All a community needs in order to be a community is a similarity that brings people together and some method of communication. So, you know, with the atheist community, one of our similarities, sorry, I said similarities. One of our similarities is just not, you know, subscribing to any one God as an atheist. And our methods of communication in the age of information, it's hard not to be able to communicate to everybody. It's hard you have to really try to not communicate to anybody nowadays. And so with that community, I hope that, you know, with our show and other people and our YouTube channels and, you know, talking to all these people and through Facebook groups and, you know, through Twitter, I hope that, you know, we can show people that there is a community of people that support each other and talk to each other. And even if we're separated geographically, that there is a community available so that those people that are not religious, that no longer want to be religious but are stuck in that because of the community, I hope that we can show them that there is an available community and there are resources and people for them to talk to, that they can come out and they don't have to hide behind that veil any longer.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a key thing as far as our movement goes. I mean, I personally know atheists who are married to religious people or who have religious families, and their family members their very close family don't even know that they're atheists. And it's like, it's actually an idea I want to go into on a show coming up. I was thinking about doing a show on Christian privilege, and it ties into this because, like, okay, so I mentioned I know an atheist whose close family is religious, like their parent, and they don't feel like they can tell their parent that. And if the script was flipped in this society and it was an atheist parent and a Christian child, that Christian child, I don't think would have any. Well, I shouldn't say that, but there's a less chance that a Christian is going to have a problem expressing that they're a Christian, you know, and it's because they have the established community, they have the established numbers, they have the privilege, and we don't have that, so we have to make that, and we have to be out there, and we have to do 10 times more than anybody else to make our community grow, you know, and that's why I really like tying in. I like the tie between atheism and rational thinking and skepticism and, you know, just having doubts, and it's a good thing for our community to latch on to give you a good tool set to navigate and help people, in a way that actually works, as opposed to a prayer medication or whatever the hell, So I think it's a good basis to build a community on, is what I'm trying to say.
Right. No, I agree. Rational thought and being able to reason your way through situations. When you're in a problem, it's hard to see the problem yourself, and it's hard to see exactly what your solutions are when you're so bogged down under the weight of your own issues. And having other people to turn to is a great thing. And we still have that. I know plenty of atheists that have issues, and we talk, and they tell me their problems. We talk about it, and I bring forward support things that organizations they can talk to, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands that there are people you can talk to, no matter what your faith is, or lack of faith, albeit that there are plenty of resources out there. We even did a show, if you go back and look at non-profit organizations on our channel under our videos section. You can see list of non-profits and resources that you can use that are non-religious as well. And like you brought up, and I don't want to get too deep into it, obviously, because we're going to do the show in the future, but there's a stigma of being an atheist. There's a stigma of atheist is a dirty word. Atheism is a dirty word, and it's a bunch of people just doing what they think is right within the confines of their reason. And I don't see that as being too much different than anyone else that's trying to do that, unless you're using your structure and worldview to proliferate oppression and hatred amongst others. But I mean, we're all like everyone else. We're all just trying to do our thing. I think the difference is that the majority of us in our community are using rational thought and reason, rather than, like you said, trying to be spoon-fed information and trying to use our faith as a basis for and trying to use, in our case, our lack of faith as an attention-grabbing thing. Many atheists will talk about different religions on social media, and it's because it's relevant. It's not because we're looking for attention. We're looking to bring your attention to the fact of what religion is doing, what religion is causing as far as oppression, hatred, and to other people, and how your faith is causing danger to others, not just because of the stigma of being secular, or just like through that legislation that we talked about. In medieval times, the stonings and drownings and being put in the stockade just for having a difference of opinion wasn't viewed as a bad thing by the general public. They often went there and threw tomatoes and threw rotten vegetables and threw their excrement and all other things at the people that were stuck in there to say, don't you dare be different. And we have culminated a society where being different isn't a bad thing, where being different is a good thing and can be an asset to society, and we are going to continue to go down that path, and I think that we're getting a lot better, but we still have a long way to go, and the stigma of just using your brain is still there. Just the stigma of using rational thought and reason to work through your issues rather than praying to an ethereal sky daddy is still there. And that's not to say that religious people are stupid, because I don't think that. Some of the most brilliant scientific minds in history have been religious. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the loudest people that are bringing the stigma, and they bring their sheeple along with them to talk down atheism and to talk down all of us and how horrible we are as human beings, those people are the bad people, and the people that are just along for the ride, whereas they are performing that action willfully, have been indoctrinated, and it's a Stockholm Syndrome kind of situation, I guess is what I'm saying.
I wanted to jump in back when you brought something up, the fact that we highlight religious news articles and that we call religion out, and seems to be a hobby of atheists, actually. But what I want to say is that I hope that atheists would do the same would look inward and do the same if other atheists did things worth criticism, because religions don't seem to do that. Whenever a religious person does something horrible, the other people in the religion who don't agree with it claim that they weren't true Christians, or they weren't true Muslims, or they weren't this, or they weren't that. So what I want to say is that going into the future, I hope that our community does the right thing and owns it. If an atheist does something horrible, we don't say that no, they're not true atheists. Own it and say that that's not what atheists should do. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to sweep it on the rug, or I don't know. It's just a concern of mine. It was kind of brought up with the shootings at the schools. They were trying to say that one guy might have been an atheist or whatever the hell. I think it was that last one. Although he was connected with the IRA, which is basically like a Catholic terrorism group, so I don't know what the deal was with that. But if he was an atheist, I mean, we would have to own it, and we would have to criticize that person, and we would have to say, like, listen, atheists, we can't be doing this. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, that kind of leads into one of our topics, I think. So I just didn't know if we wanted to transition into that. Just the whole calling religion out for its atrocities, basically.
Yeah, and if you want, I'll transition into that right when I'm done talking. But you are right. I mean, I would hope that all of us would look into like the gentleman. I'm having a hard time speaking today. Excuse me. So the gentleman that shot up the church and everything and was atheist, blah 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 blah. I would like to think that we as reasonable human beings would look at him and not say, you know, that damn atheist, blah blah blah. No, he was a person. That person committed a horribly violent act, and we condemn the person that did the act, and we condemn the act. That doesn't mean, you know, like Unabomber, or, you know, we're talking about people eating other people's faces and wearing them as masks while they do their little kooky dance. You know, all those things are all horrible things, and I know I just made a joke about it, but I mean, those are all atrocities that need to be addressed. When people bomb buildings, when people shoot people, when people, you know, kidnap other people and sex traffic them and keep them in their basement and hold them for ransom, and they do all of these violent and horrible things, you know, we condemn the act and we condemn the person that did the act because of the act. I don't ever sit there and say, you know, all Christians are bad because one person bombed a building in Chicago, or one Muslim is bad because they bombed this. No, if there's a group of people that are standing up and saying, we are violent people, we're going to kill you, and it is because of our faith, I have a problem with the concept and the idea of the faith, the fact that that is being used violently, and the fact that the violence occurred by those people, and I condemn all of that, but I don't condemn the entire religion because of that. The entire populace of that religion. I do condemn the religion, but I don't condemn the entire populace just because of the acts of a few, because that would be intellectually dishonest for me to say all Muslims are bad because of ISIS, or all Christians are bad because of the KKK, or all Catholics are bad because of the IRA. You know, and then the other thing I wanted to bring up is that there are some of us in the community that call out other people all the time, you know, regardless of who they are, how big they are, how popular they are when they do something wrong. For instance, Logic released a video on Jacqueline Glenn's plagiarism of her friend's YouTube video and said almost exactly the same thing and using barely different words, and claimed it as her own idea, and then she took down that video and then she put up a new video barely talking about it whatsoever, and that he said it better. Okay, so I mean, we do stand up and we talk about we talk about those things and those wrong acts. Plagiarism, the theft of intellectual property, it isn't a good thing, and there is a possibility on the realm of YouTube that you're going to put out a video that is similar to other people's, but this was different. And if you want, go over to Logic Channel and check out the video. He actually downloaded a copy of the original video before it was taken down and goes through it line by line to discuss all of the different similarities and, you know, why it was wrong, and then the cover-up of what happened afterwards. And we condemn that. I would like to think that we as a people condemn all of those violent acts and all of the blue-collar acts that are offensive to other people. And I'm going to segue this into our current event, which is our next section from the Heretic Cleric News Desk. We are obviously going to talk about the attacks in Paris. Completely relevant to what we were talking about and just relevant in general. So we know about the Paris attacks. Everyone should have a pretty intimate understanding. I'm going to just scroll through these while I talk. So investigations into the series of terrorist attacks that killed more than 120 people in Paris. ISIS has stepped up, saying that they're taking credit for it, that there are 3 different teams that attacked different buildings and caused this violence and death. So you can see here some of these images. You can stop at any point in time and look at the imagery of the fallout of the aftermath of this attack. Very, very large political statements have come out about that. And as you can see here, what exactly happened. Like I said, 3 teams of terrorists staged coordinated attacks at 6 locations throughout Paris. We're talking about a concert hall, the Stade de France, and 129 people were killed, 352 were wounded. 99 of the wounded are reported to be in very serious condition. 7 terrorists were killed, 1 fewer than the number ISIS claimed were involved. They claimed that 8 terrorists were involved in 3 different teams. We're talking about vehicle-borne IEDs, explosives, just horrible. Ongoing investigations. They've identified 2 of the attackers. One was Ismail Omar Mostafi. I'm sorry if I am butchering that name. I apologize. And then the other is Bilal Hafdi. Mostafa lived in Chartres. I'm sorry, my French pronunciation isn't as good as it could be. And so what do we all have to say about it? There was a large support a lot of well wishes, people volunteering, money. There are a lot of those things that are going out there. But I did want to highlight in a second news article, this was the one by CNN on everything that's going on. You can see the different venues that were attacked. And then what I kind of wanted to highlight is our response. There are a lot of people rallying behind not only Paris but also France, changing profile pictures, donating money, time, raising awareness, that kind of thing. But what did Newt Gingrich have to say? Imagine a theater with 10 or 15 citizens with concealed carry permits. We live in an age when evil men have to be killed by good people. So what Newt Gingrich and what also Ann Coulter mentioned is if more people carried guns in France, in Paris particularly, that there would be less violence, which is horribly offensive, especially in the wake of such a tragedy. And because more people having guns definitely means people are safer. I don't know about you, but this kind of shows me that people with more weapons causes a lot of harm. This is another example of that, and there are plenty of examples coming around. So they talk about exactly what it takes to own weapons in France. And please pause this video at any time if you want to read the article. Also, the articles are in the top, and I'll post them in the link below the video. So Ann Coulter also said if there were more guns, there would be less violence. That is horribly offensive to me. I wasn't even directly affected by this violent atrocity, and I'm not completely surprised, but I am a little bit, in a sense, that the insensitivity of these people. If they were allowed to carry, it would have been much different situation. These people continue to step step up and step on other people just to further their political agenda. And I know in the United States that that's not a foreign concept, so to speak, but it's just sad. It's just horrible. Like Charlie Hebdo, they said the same thing. And it's disgusting, honestly. It's disgusting to me that these people do this. Do you wanna comment on this, and Matt? And do you want me to leave these articles up and go back and forth, or just let me know?
No, it's up to you. I'm not really going to reference them, but I want to say that I don't think people should use these as a soapbox to further their agenda. That does bother me, but these type of things bring up the atmosphere that these type of questions are asked and explored. So, I mean, I'm fine with exploring that, but yeah, using it as a soapbox to further your agenda, all their deaths is pretty despicable. But with that said, I don't know whether more guns in the hands of civilians would help or not. I do know, well, I hope that more guns in the hands of trained people who have been vetted and who are responsible. I think that would help the situation. I mean, I wonder how these people, these terrorists, obtained the guns, because I remember in Charlie Hebdo, I think they were full auto AKs and they were brought in illegally. I think they were, I don't know, probably smuggled over the border or something. But what I'm saying is, like, yeah, a handgun's not really going to help you that much against that. But if you had multiple handguns, and at least if you have a handgun, you have a chance. You know what I'm saying? But I think that you see a lot of these things happen in areas. I think they're picking that as a target because they know the recipe works. They know how to smuggle the guns in, and they know that the police aren't ready for something like this. Whereas in America, we have our polices have like armored vehicles, and they have full body armor, bulletproof body armor, and they have SWAT teams, and they have ways to deal with this. And I think they're picking on France because it hasn't really had to deal with things like this, and it's such a passive community. You know what I'm saying? Like, I explored a lot of the videos from the Hebdo shooting on LiveLeak and whatnot, and from my understanding is the police were not initially ready to deal with something like this quickly. So, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of variables here. If well-trained and responsible civilians had firearms in that situation, is that better? I don't know. You know, it's like they would be there and the police wouldn't be there. So I feel like there's something to be discussed there. I don't feel like it's the complete answer, and I can't say that things would be better either way. But yeah, I don't agree with using it as a soapbox. But I mean, it just makes me think: would terrorists ever try something like that here, knowing how many guns there are? I mean, we have a reputation for having a lot of guns, you know, as a country. So maybe that's kind of stopping things like that happening here, and they have to use planes and they have to use other means. Do you have anything on that?
I do, and we have violence here all the time. You know, down the street in the town that I live in, people get shot up in Walmart parking lots. You know, people get shot up in parking lots all the time. There's plenty of gun violence and murders by guns. Now, am I saying that, you know, guns in general are bad? No, that's a dishonest thing to say. But I don't think that having more citizens with guns is appropriate unless there are certain gun control measures that can be in place. You know, for like, you know, licensing. So you have your proper amount of licensing for those firearms. And you hit a nail on the head when you said more responsible citizens, but you have to be able to clarify what is a responsible citizen and the requirements for getting them, as well as to be able to properly enforce trafficking of weapons through your borders. And that is difficult. Now, there will always be bad people that will break the rules no matter what the rules are, but I don't think that allowing every psycho in society to have a weapon readily available. There are so many people, you can see it on Facebook. Just scroll down your feed and you can see people, they're talking about, oh, I can't wait till someone breaks in my house so I can shoot them in my 45. Oh, I wish that they'd give me a reason. And those type of people don't need firearms. Like, they're basically advocating of their desire and their love for violence and how much they want to be able to shoot someone given the availability and the reason to. And that's not the people that, those are not the people we need to have firearms. So, you know, people with previous violent offenses should not have firearms. People that are rendered psychologically incapable of being a normal general part of society should not have firearms. People shouldn't be allowed to have should not be allowed to have extreme assault weapons, fully automatic weapons. People shouldn't be allowed to have rocket launchers and tanks, for Christ's sake. Obviously, for Christ's sake, there was a colloquial irregularity, but I mean, just looking at those, all of those points, I mean, just having a larger amount of firearms in the community isn't a good answer. Properly regulated firearms, making sure that law enforcement are properly not only educated and trained, but they're in the right places. They can't stop every single violent act that's going to happen, but that doesn't mean that every Joe serial killer on the block needs to have a 9mm, you know, issued to them. You know what I mean? Like, we need to have proper gun control, proper gun education, and the proper safety precautions in place to prevent as much of the violence as possible. Are you ever going to get 100%? No. But can you get 97? That's a much better number than what we're looking at now. With all the violence that we continue to have in America, gun-related violence and otherwise, I think that we need better gun control than what we have. Not removal, but we need better control, I guess is my point.
On that note, I mean, it's basically what I was saying. I'm just thinking, like, in these societies that have such strict rules, and they're encountering problems like this where the police aren't ready to deal with these type of situations. What if they created a program where civilians who wanted to sort of take more responsibility for the safety of people around them, like, enrolled in a program where you're not technically a police officer, but you get a background check, you go through classes, you go through training, all of your weapons are documented, the amount of ammo you have is documented, and you're allowed to concealed carry, and you know that in a situation where there may be a terrorist attack, you are ready to act. So it's a plainclothes civilian, it's technically not a police officer, nobody knows who's there or not, and it's people who will sign up for this knowing that they're going to be risking their lives to help other people, so they already have that kind of drive, you know what I'm saying, where it's not forcing people, you know, and it's not just picking anybody at random. It's people who want to take it seriously, want to do the classes, want to be on the up and up. I mean, that might be a good compromise. On that note, I mean, I think. Oh, sorry. Did you have something?
I just had a question. So, you mean talking like a larger, like, international deputy sheriff program like we have in the United States, where general citizens can be deputy sheriffs and buy all their own gear, and they go through the training and certification and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, something like that. Give some type of incentive for the people who want to help and who are willing to go through the background checks, do it properly, be documented, all the items documented, be held accountable for what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we should be able to come up with a good system, but that leads into something here, and I mean, it's not going to be a very popular thing to say, but guns in these type of acts, I mean, I was floored at how many people that died in this, considering how many attackers there were. I mean, I just wish and hope that people would band together and just rush the attackers, but clearly I wasn't there. There was a time frame. Everything's crazy. You know what I'm saying? I know that if that could have happened, it would have. But I need to say, as far as the amount of people who died and being shocked, it's a damn lot of people, but when you look at how many people who die every day in like car accidents and stuff like that, what I'm trying to emphasize, and I want to do it properly, and I already screwed it up, but the media is like going crazy with this. Okay, how many people die every day in like Syria or Aleppo, you know, or something like that, dude? You know what I'm saying? It's like it's this big thing because it doesn't happen there, and that's what these terrorists are trying to do. They're hitting the targets that are going to get the most attention. It's going to get the most news play. It's going to get the most, you know what I mean, like scared. It's going to make everybody the most scared. They're not, you know, nobody cares if this happens in a third world country. They care when it happens in some place like France. And if terrorists really were out to kill people, they wouldn't use guns. They would use airplanes. Apparently they used bombs in this case. I feel like they would use other methods if their goal was to just kill people. They're trying to sensationalize it. They're trying to get media attention. Okay, that's what's happening here. That's the way I see it. What do you think about that?
No, I don't. I think that that's correct, and they did use suicide bombers in conjunction with assault weapons to perform shootings. So rapid firing assault weapons as well as the suicide bombers to kill all of those people. And I don't think that you're wrong. And there are, you know, plenty of people that have been murdered in bombings and shootings in Kenya. And you don't really hear a lot about that. If you go over to Caprice Meta's stuff and you look at her feed and her channel and everything, you know, she talks a lot about that. How there isn't a lot of support for all the Kenyan violence, but there's a support for French violence. And I don't think, and you're not wrong. You know, we don't need to just be supporting one event. We need to support all events. And like I've said before, unfortunately, as a society, we have to look at, you know, we have very small attention when it comes to a large group of people. The larger the group of people, the smaller amount of attention that we have, and we have to focus on one issue at a time, but we need not lose focus of all the issues that are happening. And that's one thing that we're very good at, is losing focus of the big picture and only focusing on each piece of the puzzle individually. And it's important to focus on all those little pieces, but we need to, you know, look at the larger scale, that there are a lot more shootings and bombings that are happening everywhere else as well. And whereas this is a tragedy, especially a tragedy on such a large scale, and my feelings go out to all the people that were affected, you know, directly and indirectly, but we also need to be cognizant of all the other violence that's going on in the world, and how this is not only all related, but how horrible it is in general, and how we as a global community can put an end to as much of the violence as possible, and what we can do to support those that have been affected.
This makes me think, like, all the stuff with ISIS. What if we just gave them a plot of land and said, okay, you guys happy now? Go do whatever you want to do. We'll leave you alone. Go cut off all the heads of everybody in your little group. Like, would all this end? Like, what is their end goal here? You know, just to kill infidels? Like, I don't know. Like,
well, you know, to quote a line from a superhero movie, some people just want to watch the world burn. It's some people, you know, do advocate for the anarchy.
Well, it's clearly not anarchy. It's religiously driven. I mean, it's like they think they're doing something good and honoring their religion and their God. I mean, if it was anarchy, you know, I mean, I don't know.
Anarchy and destruction and chaos through organized crime?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I just wonder, like, I don't know. What is their direction? What do they think is going to happen? I mean, clearly they think God is on their side, and they're counting the hits and forgetting the misses, but, like, I don't know, man.
Well, I mean, there has to be some sort of end that they have in mind, because Islam is the fastest growing religion of the world, and the fastest growing group in the world are atheists. So, I mean, you know, those two are, you know, increasingly, and I got those from it was a religious research study and poll from, I think it was the Pew Research, in conjunction with U.S. governmental affiliations such as FBI, intelligence, and stuff like that, and also public polling. But yeah, so they're looking for more people to kill more people. I don't know. It just there's a lot of and I watched a TV show recently, and they kind of hit the nail on the head. It was actually Doctor Who. It was one of the like the Zygon inversion episode, and I know that I'm kind of giving a shout out to them, I guess indirectly. But there at the end of the episode that they were talking about, what is your plan after you conquered everyone? What is your plan after you've completed all this violence and the war is over? Who are you going to have to stand up to the next group that is rallying, that is going to oppose you and is going to try to destroy you? What are you going to do to them? And how are you going to fight them? Did you even think of that? So, I mean, it's exactly, that was my thought, and ties into all this, violence and hatred is, what is their plan afterward? That obviously they want the world to be ruled by Islam, but there's always going to be a group that's going to step up to oppose that view. It's unfortunate and it's inevitable. So, I mean, we just need to think about that when we're moving forward. What is our plan for the future? Did you want to move on to the weekly absurdity?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Matt has we went from the weekly scripture, the wheel. We moved on to weekly absurdity using Skeptic's Annotated Bible as our resource. It's not only easier to track, but it's really good. So I'm going to let Matt take it away with the weekly absurdity.
Okay, so if you would direct viewers at home, if you would direct your web browser to skepticsannotatedbible.com and go to the absurdities section, we are looking at absurdity number 1177, and it summed up says, God will girdle his loins with righteousness and his kidneys with faithfulness. So apparently God is protecting the dude's penis with faithfulness and his kidneys with, what was that again? His kidneys with, all right, I read it wrong. All right, so the loins are guarded with righteousness and the kidneys are guarded with faithfulness. So apparently if you're faithful, your kidneys are all good, and it's just, what, okay. I get what it's saying. It's like if you have these things, God will protect you. But why would they choose these body parts? I just don't get their...
What, the loins and the kidneys?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, they're sensitive areas, I understand, but...
I think that they're using that as a symbolism, like just a symbol for you will be protected. But you're not wrong. I mean, that is completely ridiculous. Like the fact that they would even mention it in that way just is ridiculous in and of itself. But no, you're right. It just doesn't make sense. It's completely absurd. So I did bring it up on the screen for everyone to see. You don't have to.
What exactly is righteousness? Is that just like piousness and glory? I mean, being. Let me see. I'm going to read the definition. Morally right or justifiable or virtuous or very good and excellent. So if you're morally right and justifiable, your penis is protected. And if you believe in things for not having enough evidence then your kidneys are protected, apparently.
and not just that, but God will girdle his loins with righteousness, with virtue. So I guess, God's, in this case, Yahweh, the Abrahamic God, is girdling his loins with righteousness. So girdle your loins. I think that I like that better than guard your grill. Girdle your loins. I think that's a better statement. I'm going to coin that. I'm going to take it. Hashtag girdle your loins.
Yeah, dude.
That's definitely the new thing.
That's what you got to tell your kid when they're in Little League, when it remind him to put his cup in his pants.
Girdle thine loins. Oh, all right.
When he goes out to swing at the plate, you got to be like, "Are your loins girdled, son?"
Make sure you girdle your loins, son. There are plenty of people out there that would want to cause you harm. Oh, all right. So I think on that note, the show tonight, we talked about the dangers of faith. We talked about medieval and Roman culture and society, swapping of faith. We talked about the legislation in faith, including DOMA. and we talked about the oppressive nature of faith and religion, having unfounded beliefs and how that can be harmful. We also talked about the attacks in Paris and those tragic and horrible events that happened in Paris, as well as Kenya and other parts of the world. We talked about our absurdity of the week, which was girding your loins. Make sure everyone girdles their loins. It's very important. You want to keep your loins protected with your righteousness. And now it is time for our spotlight this week. So I'm going to bring it up. Our spotlight for the week that Matt is going to talk about is Alex Aldrin, the thinker. Matt, take it away.
I really haven't watched a single one of this guy's videos. I just did a search on it. He is an up-and-coming atheist YouTuber. It looks like it's been a couple months since he made a video, but it looks like he goes a little time in between making them. But yeah, I just searched for kind of lesser-known atheist figure and came across him, and he's got a little thing going on with his sunglasses in the dark room. He's bald white male. You know how we like them around here. So
Right.
yeah, I just figured. I mean, I'm gonna be checking him out, and maybe we can check him out together, and you guys, we can hold hands and watch these videos together through the internet.
All right, it's like instead of a book club, it's like an atheist video club.
Yeah, pretty much.
So this is our blind endorsement. It's going to be Alex Aldrin this week. We're going to put him on the right-hand side of the Heretic Clerics YouTube channel under the Atheist Spotlight section. He will be the very top of that Spotlight section for the next week until we do our next Spotlight. Everyone, I want to say, well, let me turn this off. Everyone, I want to say thank you for stopping by, and as normal from everyone, I want to say deuces.